Decision Canada. Make it count. Watch Global National, listen and follow on globalnews.ca.
He's calling shotgun for the drive home. And boy, does he have stories to tell. Calgary Today with Joe McFarland on 770 CHQR.
In researching over the last couple of weeks around the charter school system, the public school system, and the private school system here in this province, I stumbled upon an article entitled "The Alberta Public Charter School System, a System of Secret Gardens." One of the people behind that piece was Eugene Kowch, joins us now from the Werklund School of Education at the University of Calgary. He's got a plethora of titles that could take me almost all segment to get through. And so, Eugene, let's cut right to the chase here. You mentioned secret garden in this piece, but is the idea of a charter school almost the forbidden fruit in all of this conversation? We almost can't talk about it for a variety of reasons.
One of the things we found in this study was the perception of the community and of even the charter system that there's a really competitive environment for education, and that the public system might stand in opposition to some of the charter principles and vice versa. What we found, though, was that there are policy environment considerations that are shaping the charters and the public system that are different. For example, in the United States, the policy on charter schools focuses on failing schools, market competitiveness, racial integration, and the needs of minority groups. But in Canada, and here in Alberta especially, we focus on providing education opportunities that focus on cultural diversity for kids. We focus on programs to provide better learning experiences and a sense of belonging for, say, immigrant groups and marginalized youth, and kids interested in specific cultures in both urban and rural settings. So there's a real different focus in Canada on charters than there is in the U.S. Yet, for some reason, these myths abound about vouchers and competition. We know the public system is great in Alberta. We're one of the best in the world, both public, private, independent, all of them are good. But we've got this competition idea that I don't think is helping us amp up some of our best secret garden solutions, and I think some education is required on that.
Are we possibly missing out on a bit of an opportunity here to not just bring up the charter schools, but also to maybe bring up even public schools that way and to lessen some of the burden that is on a system that has been in the headlines quite a bit lately?
Joe, that's a brilliant comment, and it's at the heart of what we find and study on the charter schools. The charter schools have in them the DNA for a less bureaucratic, more agile, more learner-focused and parent-voiced system than is possible in a large public system. And they're not built for large, they're built for small, and they're built for specific communities and specific learners, and that's their charter. And the way they do things is a model for public school, I think, renewal. They could inform the public school system. They could also learn some things from the public schools, too. What I find surprising is we tend to build one school the same as the other school, same as the other school, create districts of them, divisions of them, very big city-urban systems, and I study systems, and very much smaller rural systems. But they're all kind of the same, essentially, in their structure. And the charter schools, we found some very different structuring and resourcing and community partnerships that change the nature of the school, including, for example, experts in the community being involved in the school a lot more, both in the governance and in the actual leadership of the school in terms of school boards. So it's exciting, and I think we can learn a lot from each other, but I'd love to see a conversation open up with more research and more evidence like we have, that there is impact possible and brilliant models for leadership, new kinds of leadership and governance that were back in '96 when the government instituted charter schools. But somehow along the way, and we can talk about regulatory policies that are different between public and charter systems that may be constraining the argument, creating a false sense of competition when we know the public system's fully loaded, and so is the charter system. So how do we make both work better? for Alberta kids.
Is that one of the challenges that the public boards, particularly in Calgary and Edmonton, face, is that they almost don't want to see any kind of competition, I'll use that term. And so what they've done is they've started to branch out into areas that, especially at the high school level, that are not necessarily at the core of what is thought of as being high school, quote unquote.
Well, the public systems are huge. And with that size comes a bureaucracy. And we are heavy in the water on bureaucracy. And that's something that the charter schools aren't as much. And even more interestingly, we found they have the DNA for even less bureaucracy and more agility to change to the needs of the community, the teachers, and society, to be flexible. Because they also partly, they have to justify themselves every 5 years. They have to go to the minister and get their charter renewed. That isn't quite the level of accountability we see in the major public systems. But the public systems have seen a need for the kinds of education the charter systems provide, and they have actually cloned a lot of the charter school pedagogies and types of learning systems that exist in the charter school. I think both of them have foundations programs, science schools, girls' schools. So they, in 20 years, the 20 years the charters have existed, the public system has seen enough value in the innovations in the charter system to duplicate some of those offerings. So I just think a new conversation, and I think partnerships between them are probably the future, where we can save a lot of expense and overhead by maybe even sharing resources.
Almost putting down the swords for a more wholesome conversation, but I am curious, how important is it to have that wholesome conversation without the political noise that's out there, without the left wing bashing the right wing and the right wing bashing the left wing, and actually look forward to the future?
Brilliant comment, and so true. My research partner on the study, Dianne Gereluk, who's now our amazing dean at the University of Calgary Faculty of Education, she was the associate dean of our undergraduate teacher preparation program. She embedded a lot of these principles I'm going to talk about into our teacher preparation program. But she's got a great book out with Lynn Bosetti called Understanding School Choice in Canada, 2016. And in it, they outline some principles for developing new charter school policy that consider the philosophy. It's a very deep philosophical book. I highly recommend it. But as a country boy growing up on the farm, thinking of snow on the crops today, I know people are busy and they don't need all the theory. So what they propose is that we have a new way to approach policy development for charter schools. They have three principles. First, it's got to be more moral and ethical, focused on the needs of the student. That's not political. It needs to provide for ethnocultural diversity, and this is based on studies of systems across Canada. So the diversity of learners who need the advantage of a bespoke school system, and that's what we have in the charter system. And they can create as many as we can imagine through their innovations. They've got 6 or 7 kinds right now. And the third is to remind ourselves that we're not a free market in education. My experience, I was a senior engineer for large oil companies for 15 years. Changed careers to make a difference in the public system, didn't do it for the money. And I know that education is nothing like a free market. There are regulatory constraints, all kinds of concerns. So it's not a free market, but the American free market, for example, vouchers conversation distracts us enormously from figuring out how we can build, amp up, and sustain new systems like the charter schools without some of that baggage. And I think education is the key. If we're ethical, we're ethnoculturally diverse, and we realize we need to sustain the system and the innovations the charters create and the kinds of learning they provide, we're going to be in a lot better shape, and we're going to be able to inform parents better about choice, because choice is important, but informed choice is really important.
Eugene, a great way to sum things up. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you.